Hi, everybody. I'm Melinda Gallant, and I want to welcome you to another Cape Conversations. Oh my gosh, do we have a great guest today? And she's in the know about everything in the town. It's going to be so exciting. I can't wait. So come along. Let's have another Cape Conversations. Hi, everybody. I have a wonderful guest, and I'm in a beautiful space today. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm excited about my guest. I am with Candy Thomson. Oh, the intrepid reporter for the Sandwich Enterprise. You know, you're like Clark Kent for Sandwich, you know?
More Lois Lane, don't you think?
Well, maybe, yeah, but yes, because you're a woman, but you also take those glasses off and you get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, Candy, how are you? It's so wonderful to have you on the program.
Oh, it's nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So, Candy, everybody reads your column. Everybody reads your column. I know they read your column because I see it in Facebook. Did you see what Candy Thomson said? And then people will call me and say, well, Candy Thomson said this. So, first of all, where do you come from? Because I just know you from being in Sandwich, but I know you came from other places.
My mother used to say, "Where did you come from?" You know.
So did mine.
So it goes way back. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in New Jersey, and my parents, one was from Pennsylvania, one was from Baltimore.
Yeah.
They lived in Baltimore. They moved to New Jersey after they got married, and I grew up there, and then decided that I really was a New Englander. So I went to college in Boston. I went to Emerson.
Oh, wow.
Home of Greg Anderson and Dave Sampson.
Right, a lot of people.
And John Paradise, the editor of the Enterprise.
Yeah.
And Katie Goers, the editor of the Enterprise. And so I went there. And my family, meanwhile, my husband's side, bought a house here in Sandwich in 1981.
Oh, my gosh.
And so my husband and I got married in the backyard here in Sandwich.
Oh, no way.
And we played bride's team versus groom's team softball at Wing School.
Oh, my God, how fun.
And yeah, so this has always felt very home to me. Very, I like this place a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So Bob and I moved to the DC area, and he went to work for the Washington Post. And I went to work.
What did he do there?
He was an editor, and then he was Dr. Gridlock, the transportation columnist.
Oh, my gosh.
The Dear Abby of traffic, as we used to call him.
I bet you he read some good ones.
Oh, he was, you know, and we'd go to parties, and people would say, like, doctor. They would call him doctor. And I'm like, I can't stand this. But they say, doctor, you know, I have to go to the airport at 5 p.m. What time should I leave?
Yeah.
And he would dispense traffic.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Wisdom. So we were, and I was at the Baltimore Sun. We were rivals.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally he retired, and I retired 2 years after him. And literally I retired in November of 2018. And I walked in the door, and Bob was already calling moving companies because we knew we wanted
to
move up here. And the family left the house to us, and we began fixing it up. And so in January of 2019, we began the move up here, and we've been happy to be here ever since.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great. So what did you do, though? I know you're retired, but you've done a lot of things in your life.
Well, you know, when you're a reporter, you're a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
And so over the years, I started out from Emerson College. I covered 4 New Hampshire presidential primaries, so I got to meet like George McGovern and got to interview Ronald Reagan, and all that was kind of like a lot of fun and gee whiz. But I also covered local government, and I fell in love with local government. I love how it works. I love the personalities. I love the interaction at the local level that you don't get at the state level or the federal level.
Right, right.
So I really enjoyed, and I learned I went up to New Hampshire, and I learned in the town of Derry from the public works director and the police chief and the fire chief. I learned how budgets worked. I learned how to get something before the selectmen and how to get it enacted. And that was all fascinating to me. And then, you know, and Bob and I met and married, and we moved to the DC area. I went to work for the Baltimore Sun, and I covered 5 Olympics.
Wow.
And some Supreme Court cases and state government, and I was a columnist, and I was the outdoors writer, and I wrote stories about the Orioles and the Ravens. And so it was, it's one of those things that over 40 years, you learn how to do all kinds of things.
Right, right.
And
Oh,
you never get bored.
No, I was going to say, it sounds wonderful. But you also worked for the state police.
I went to work in 2013. I could see the handwriting on the wall that newspapers were probably
Right.
not going to last much longer in a form that I would want to work at.
So I know that you worked for the state police. Am I right?
Well, it was a state police agency. In 2013, I realized that newspapers, as I liked them, as I learned at, weren't going to exist much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the Baltimore Sun was offering buyouts. They had offered buyouts periodically. And I just looked at it and I said, and I looked at the money and I looked at the benefits. And I said, if I'm going to do something different with the last 5 years of my career, now is the time.
Right.
So I went to work for the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. And I was the spokesperson for Maryland Natural Resources Police and 77 state parks.
Oh, wow.
So that was exactly right up my alley because I
Yeah.
had been the outdoor writer for the Baltimore Sun.
Yeah.
I had covered Maryland's
So
natural...
it was all fun and games.
It was all
stuff.
fun and games.
Just really fun stuff, all happy.
Oh, no. And I knew that going in.
Yeah.
Maryland Natural Resources Police, they're responsible for all law enforcement on the water, on public land, because they have all the boats in the state. They also protect, Washington, D.C.
Oh, sure.
They
All
did,
those parks too?
no, those federal parks.
Those are federal
Whoa,
parks.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
But, like during the inauguration, it would be Maryland Natural Resources Police on the Potomac helping the Coast Guard protect the city. When President Trump would golf at his golf course in Northern Virginia, that shoreline of the Potomac was patrolled by Maryland Natural Resources Police. They were the most powerful police agency in the state of Maryland.
Wow.
So I really enjoyed working for them.
Oh, sure.
And they were like part cop, part park ranger. So it was a lot of fun. And 77 state parks, what could go wrong, right?
Right.
So I knew going in that there would be some nasty bits, but we handled every drowning in the state, every boating disaster, every hunting accident, every lost hiker, every dead hiker, so it wasn't all fun and games.
And drug deals.
And drug deals in parks, and gang fights, would break out occasionally. All those ended up being on my watch.
So you had to say to the public, well, this is what happened.
Yep.
So you were the spokesperson then.
I would be at the scene.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd help zip up the body bag. Sometimes I would be a distraction. In other words, where there would be a particularly grisly scene, I would hold my news briefing someplace else.
Right, of course.
So that the cameras wouldn't catch the grisly part. So sometimes I was just a decoy, you know.
I can't imagine that about you at all.
Yeah, look over here, right? It was like, and I did that, occasionally they would say to me, a commander would say to me, we need for the press not to be here. Right. Because of any number of really gruesome things.
So you were there until what, 2019?
I was there until 2018. The very end of 2018, I finally decided that I had run my course in Maryland. We had been there 31 years, and it was time to go where we wanted to go.
Sure.
And here we are.
Wow, that is so exciting for you, though.
Yeah.
So you come up here and you live in the family home.
Right.
And you're hanging out, decorating, for lack of a better term.
Sure.
Sure. And you decide, well, gosh, I'm kind of bored. I guess I'll go work for the local paper.
It was a little more lengthy, and John Paradise, the editor of the Enterprise, would tell you that he was after me for a while to be a columnist. And I was like, I just retired. I don't want to write anymore for a while.
Yeah.
And we'd have coffee and he'd ask me. And finally, the last time, he said, well, how about now? And I said, how about we date? How about we date?
Love it.
I will write you 3 columns, and if you hate me or I hate you,
we're done.
We're done. And so that's how it started.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And that was how long ago?
Oh, am I in my second or third year now? Second or third year.
Yeah, I was going to say at least 3, I would think.
It
I
feels like
remember.
it, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
I don't know. So I've got a book title for you, though, Musings of a Small Town. I put all your
Oh.
columns in the book.
You know, it's funny. I have friends who are newspaper people
Yeah.
who have written books and been very successful at
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And they're always saying to me, you should write a book. And it's like, you know, I pass discount bins all the time where books are going for $1
Right.
and $2. And I work at the, you know, the Sandwich Public Library, the book
Right.
sale
Right.
twice a month. And I see the books that
Books come
people
in.
have like given up on.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to see my name
No,
in the
you don't want to do
discount
that.
bin. No.
Well, that brings me to another thing, though. You do a lot of things. I mean, I know you're a columnist. We're talking about that because that's your professional background.
Mm-hmm.
But you do other things, too. I know I've worked with you at the polls.
Mm-hmm.
You do that. What else do you do around town? You do a lot of, like, I call them good works. When I go to the polls and sit there and smile at people who sometimes are not very nice to us.
Right.
I never could quite figure that out. When I go hi and they go, yeah, what do you, don't you want my license? And they scream at me.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, we don't
Here.
need a message.
Yes.
They shove it in your face. Okay. But, you know, I think of that as doing good works.
Yes.
You know, in my own little way. I'm not working for the Red Cross necessarily, but I am doing this. I'm sure you feel that way too, but you do a lot of things, though. As you just said, you do things at the library.
Well, of course, my husband's a library trustee.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, he's on the board of trustees.
I've never met your husband.
Oh.
Have I met him? Oh, yes, I did once.
Okay.
In a very special bar in downtown Sandwich.
He's very quiet.
Yes, I did meet him once.
I fill all the spaces.
That's all right.
But he's
Yeah,
a good
I know what
listener.
that's like.
But, you know, we came to town and we decided we wanted to see how every town committee worked.
Oh, nice.
So we decided we'll just show up at meetings.
Oh, fun.
So we walked in, the first one we went to was the public library, board of trustees. And we walk in and there's no place to sit down, so we make a little room because it was the old McKnight room when it was kind of a repository of everything.
Junk.
And we sit down and all the eyes of the board are on the two of us.
Why are you here?
Well, Mark Wicklund, who was chair at the time, said, are you here to complain about something? And we went like,
they're assuming.
Right. And we went, no, we're just here to see how you work. And they went, great. And Mark's second question was, do one of you want to be a trustee? Because they had like 2 openings. And I said, he's the man. Because his mom loved this public library.
Oh, nice.
And I said, this is perfect for him. And he loves it. And, you know, he runs for re-election.
Yeah.
He loves the work.
Oh, that's great.
So I help him out, you know, with the Friends book sale. But I grew up in a family where the second I was able to vote, my mother took me in and got me registered.
Of course.
And the second I was old enough to give blood, I'm up to 39 gallons now. But my mom is the one who said, this doesn't hurt a bit and it takes 45 minutes.
Right.
Why wouldn't you do it?
Right.
So she's the one who got me going this way.
Oh, my goodness.
As a reporter, I could never do anything. You can't, you know, you've got to be neutral. You've got to stay away. And newspapers actually had rules that you could not be involved.
Right.
So the second I got here, it's like, well, I'm going to do all the things I never got to do for 45 years.
Right.
So it's been a great experience. I've learned a lot. I've learned how to run earth-moving equipment, and I've learned how to, you know, help David Wynot rejigger his store, you know, renovate his store. I've learned all these kinds of cool things. Mm-hmm. I've learned about a BMX track. I've learned how they run races.
Sure.
You know, I help out cutting shortcakes for the First Church, you know, for July 4th. And it's all a learning experience, and it's wonderful. And you get to meet everybody in town.
Sure, sure.
Because maybe somebody doesn't go to the church, but they have a kid at BMX.
Right.
You know, or maybe something happens at the PTA. I'm a member of all the PTAs because I've never had kids, but I think they're pretty cool. And, you know, and
well, that's how you get in to know. I mean, if you're a person who moves to a town and you have kids, that's how you meet people, is through your kids.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's the number one way. And so being a part of the PTA, you really know the nitty gritty of what's going on.
Sure.
you know.
As a reporter, I used to go to PTA meetings to find out what the community was thinking.
Sure.
And I still tell beginning reporters, do yourself a favor, pick a PTA meeting and just go and listen to the parents.
Right, right.
And you know, when you have reporters who don't live in the town,
Right.
that's one real way to plug in.
Well, oh, absolutely. Yeah, it would be. So you give advice to the youngins coming up.
Well, you know, it's like they have, yeah, I guess I do in my own way, but I try to lead by example too.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
By asking questions, by thinking about who else might add to this story, and I
Sure.
say that because journalism is a giving kind of thing.
Right.
I learned from somebody, Bob learned from somebody, my husband, and you have to. It is a pay it forward kind of business.
Sure, sure. So, what is one or two columns that you've written here that are your favorite?
Oh, wow. You said no gotcha questions.
Well, that's not a gotcha
No,
question.
I can't even remember what I wrote last week. That's like one of those.
Well, I can't. No.
Somebody will come up to me at our favorite watering hole down the street and
Yes.
say, I really liked your column this week. And I'll go, what did I write? And I'll say to Bob, what did I write? And he
What-
goes, I don't know.
I
And
write
he
so
edits all
many.
my, well,
Yeah.
I have the best editor in the world. I have my husband,
Yeah.
who, you know, worked at the Washington Post
Right.
and dealt with Pulitzer Prize winning reporters.
Right.
And so I have a great editor.
Yeah.
And he'll tell me, he never tells me crank this back, but
Yeah.
you know, he'll say like, oh, maybe there's a better way to say this, you know? It's like,
And
okay.
slapping them in the face.
That's right. But columns that I've really liked, I think writing about things that, for example, the clickers.
Hmm.
I just got it in my head, and I talked to Taylor White, our clerk, that we ought to have them because it would make voting
So much easier.
quicker.
Yeah.
And it would also stop some of the shouting, you know, like when people are just shouting at town meetings.
And I was a counter
Yeah, me too.
for a couple of, and oh my gosh, I haven't been to, I'll be honest, I haven't been to town meeting in a while, but I used to go all, you know, at every town meeting I would go, and they would always make me a counter. And then they would look at you and go, well, are you sure you counted that right? You know,
Yeah.
or like, you missed me. And no,
People
I
having their
gotcha.
hands up through the yes and the
And the
no.
no's,
It's like, yeah,
yes.
no.
And then holding the cards, and then they slowly go down. Well, do you want to vote for this?
Right.
I'm not guessing.
Hi,
so.
yeah.
So that was good. Then that's a good
So
thing.
that was a good thing. But I mean, that was one of those things that it happened at exactly the right moment.
Right.
You know, I noticed it. Taylor had been in favor of it for a long
Oh,
time.
sure.
It was an election year where we had a contest for moderator. It all came to a head at the right time.
Yeah.
And Bud, you know, said he had the money to do it,
Yeah,
the town
yeah.
manager. So it was one of those things that all came together at the right time, and we have them now, and town meeting, the last one
It
went,
goes so smoothly.
and nobody yells. It's not this screaming from the
Right,
balcony,
yeah.
which always annoyed me.
Well, it's very annoying. And the other thing too is, I think what I have found now is that people are trying to be, because of all what's going on in the rest of the world, in our own little corner of the universe, people are trying to be a little bit more civil. I've often asked recently what happened to civility,
Mhm.
you know? And to me, even something as simple as a clicker at a town meeting, now, there are a lot of people that may see this, because I have friends in Ohio and relatives in California, and they watch these programs. And they go, well, what's a clicker for town meeting? It's for voting. And for voting on major money.
Yes, no, yeah.
Yes, no, it's real tough. And but most people don't have town meetings anymore.
Right.
They're governed by a mayoral system or some other kind of system, and have town councils. Well, even on the Cape, they have representative town meetings now,
Right.
which is, I don't know. I mean, I think sometimes it would be good,
Right.
but boy, you got to make sure you get the right rep.
Well, and the other part of that, of course, is that you have to pull papers and run to be a
rep,
representative to town meeting. We can't even get the full ballot on the rest of the stuff, like
Right.
selectmen. We've had years where there's been no contested races,
Right, right.
where we have empty spots
Right.
on, you know. So
Why do you think that is?
people are busy.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
You think it's because of our demographics, because of our town?
well, you would think older demographics would mean people with time on their hands would say,
Sure,
yeah,
I'll do
I have
this.
life experience.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I think we've become detached from government.
Hmm.
And also government is insular.
Sure.
I mean, I like our town manager. You know, JJ, our fire chief, is a great guy.
Well, and he went to
and
Sandwich
he's
High School.
fabulous, and he went to Sandwich High School. We have our librarian
Yeah.
is marvelous and good on outreach.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, the folks over at the old bank building, you know,
Yeah.
our new town offices, I think they're fairly insular.
Yeah.
Taylor gets out, our town
Yeah.
clerk.
Taylor is out and about.
Taylor's out and about. But the rest of them, you know, do their job and
Right,
they
and
go
go
home.
home.
And half of them don't, half of the departments don't even live in town.
Well, I know that. I had one department head say he moved out of town because of the taxes, which I thought was quite funny.
Yes.
He
So
shall remain nameless.
So I think that's part of it, is that, you know, our town government is made up of professionals, and
Yeah.
they do their job, and they don't sit at the coffee shop,
Right.
and they're not at the bar, you know, or
Right.
the restaurant.
Right.
So I think we've become detached. I think that's bad,
Yeah.
because in a town this size.
So they're detached.
Yeah.
And so the population becomes detached because you never see them.
Right. And people don't know what different boards do. I mean, I
Right.
think one of the other columns, just to go back for a second, one of the columns I was proud of was the one that said, why don't we have a volunteer job fair? Right? So we have the CAL, the Center for
Oh,
Active
no, I
Living.
was there.
Right? And let's have a job fair for volunteers,
Right.
because people don't know what they could volunteer for.
Right.
And groups aren't good at saying this is what we do, because they're modest and they're volunteers.
Right.
So let's get everybody in the same room and see if we can't
Yeah, it was
play
great.
the match game.
Yep.
Boy, is that dating me. The match game. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Um,
I remember all those shows, so go ahead.
But so that was another column where I went to the head of our recreation department, who, Trish, is a marvelous individual.
Yes, she is. Yep.
Susan at the Center for Active Living. And I said,
Yep.
why can't we have a job fair for volunteers? And like that. And
It happened.
It happened because a small town can do that.
Yep.
They can spin on a dime and say, this is something we ought to do.
Right.
And sure enough, we filled that meeting room.
Right.
And we're going to do another one, I'm told, in the spring.
Oh, good.
Because recreation will need people to work at the, you know, the beaches.
Right. Right.
And the guard jacks and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, but that's where we have to start reconnecting, is these are our volunteers, and this is what we have to fill. And let's see if we can't make that come together. So that's another column I was very happy to do, and that there was a quick response.
Sure. Well, the other thing about Sandwich now is the fact that we've got so many people that during COVID, they came, they bought,
Mm-hmm.
they remodeled,
Mm-hmm.
and now they've gone back, but they're now, you know, Airbnb-ing their homes.
Sure.
On my street, I have 6. I actually think now, if you go around the corner, we have about 9.
Wow.
Right, in town. That's in Town Neck, right?
Sure.
Which is close to the water. It used to be across the tracks. And there was a parent when we first moved here and we bought this little tiny goofy house because it's all we could afford. They said, and this is 43 years ago, they said, well, you know, I won't let my kid come play with your kid because it's on the other side of the tracks.
Yipes.
And it was. That's what it was. Town Neck. And of course, now it's the most, I love the realtors who say, the most desirable neighborhood in all of Sandwich is Town Neck. And Joe and I die laughing about that because, you know, before we weren't allowed to do anything. So that said, we have a lot of Airbnbs.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, I mean, I don't mind it because the winter,
taxes
are taxes and they're empty, right?
Mm-hmm.
At this time of year. I don't even mind them in the summer. There are people coming and going, but it's not a big deal. But what bothers me is they have no sense of community.
That's right.
So the owner owns the building, which is
Mm-hmm.
the house, and the people come and go, but they don't like, the people are lovely across the street. Across the street from us, a woman went into assisted living, and they bought it and they fixed it up, and it's cute.
Mm-hmm.
And they have no sense. There's an Arts Alliance. Oh, there's a library downtown. I mean, they know where the bars are because that's what people do. They go
Sure.
out to eat and they go to the beach.
Sure.
So that is the biggest problem, I think, is because of that. And there's no, I don't know whether towns can, I don't know, can they control that? I mean, you can't control
It's
the
hard.
sense of,
It's private property.
right.
My column, as a matter of fact, that we're talking about something that's my column this coming week, and that is some of your neighbors are being essentially priced out of the out-of-town neck. See? And it's not the building values, it's the land values. So folks who bought a 50 by 100 lot
Right.
50 years ago, that's now going for exorbitant amounts. People's land values in Town Neck this last go round went up $50,000, $100,000.
Ours went up almost 200,000. And the other problem is, if you have a vacant lot that is buildable, they assess it at 10,000. There's no rhyme nor reason.
Right,
you know.
right. So that's part of this whole problem of we've grown, and we've
Right.
grown probably differently than our town fathers in the 70s and the 80s
Sure.
thought we would.
Right.
And so we need to come to grips with that. We have an excellent town community development person in Leanne Drake, who just came on board.
Yeah.
She got
I
promoted.
don't know her, but I know a lot of people that do and say she's fabulous.
She's fabulous. You know,
Yeah.
you take Leanne Drake, you take our new librarian.
Yeah.
JJ will be ageless for as long as he wants to be fire chief. I
Right.
hope he never retires. But we have people who get this.
Yeah, yeah.
And who are looking for ways to, our new superintendent of schools
Yeah.
gets it. Those are the people who are going to figure out
How to do this.
How to do this.
Well, and here's the thing. If they look to other states, like Vermont, you can't buy a house in Vermont and rent it out 9 months of the year. You can, I think there's a limit of it, maybe 6 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, they have finite definition of what you can do, what you can't do. And I think it's because they didn't want to have it become all Airbnbs. Because in Vermont, it'd be very easy with people in New York coming up, buying it, coming up for a couple of weeks and then going away, which is what's happening here. So
absolutely. I mean, Patty Page's Old Cape Cod ain't happening anymore.
It ain't happening, that's for sure. That's for absolutely sure. So you came here in 2019, you're loving it. So what are the new columns coming up?
Oh, the things I want to look at are, you know, how our Beacon Hill representatives do our bidding. Do they? That's something I want to look at.
Well, all anybody has to do is go look at their voting record.
Well, you can do that, or you can look at the bills they file.
Right, and that too. That would be the other way, certainly.
Certainly, and some of the things that I'm working on a column about, we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And we've made them at town meeting.
Yeah.
And we live with those mistakes and we try to correct them, and sometimes that costs money.
Yeah, yeah.
We know that from our schools not doing maintenance for years and years and years, and the bill comes due. We know that voters repeatedly turn down road bonds to fix our roads, and now the bill comes due. This building we're in, beautifully renovated in 2009. Maintenance, now it's $2.5 million to fix the front of this building and fix the windows.
I know.
You know, we have some issues that we have to deal with.
And we have old buildings.
And we have old buildings. We live in ye old Sandwich.
That's
and
right.
Ye old we are.
Yeah.
And the fixes aren't cheap.
Right.
You know, I want to look at regionalization of our schools.
Sure.
Because our population of children, you know, has dropped 50% over the past 20 years, and we're stable, but is stable.
Well, and here's the other thing, with school choice.
Yeah.
And with one of the finest charter schools in America, in Hyannis, which is, 15 miles away, it makes a great impact.
So I also think that our superintendent, both our superintendent and our librarian, are doing strategic plans right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that's what we have to do. And I don't mean strategic plans like the Cape Cod Commission makes us do
No,
to check a box.
Yeah,
I mean a real look at us.
Yeah.
So I think those are important things.
Yeah.
I think those are encouraging things.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, you are a delight. Thank you
Whoa.
so much.
My mother never said
Yeah.
that.
I won't tell you what my dad used to say to me. Anyway, I was a little bit precocious. So anyway, I just want to thank you. It's been a delight. And now the people of Sandwich know Candy Thomson is a teeny bit more.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me on.
Candy Thomson was terrific. She's a columnist for the Sandwich Enterprise, and she writes a great column about what's going on in town. And she also works at the polls for the election board. She works at the library. Oh my God, this woman does everything in town, and you see her everywhere. And it's really, really wonderful. She is so involved. And you know what? We should all be involved like that, especially now. So I want to thank you for joining me today, and see you next time on another Cape Conversations.